The day my garage became a battleground. The moment I lifted the garage door, my jaw dropped. My tools, my workbench, my sanctuary. And there, smack in the middle, sat a gleaming SUV, parked like it owned the place. I was mid-sentence with Sheriff Mike Dawson, discussing neighborhood cleanup after a brutal storm, when Margaret Voss, the HOA's self-appointed queen, strutted in. She froze when she saw Mike's badge glinting under the garage lights, her clipboard tilting as if the world had just tilted with it. My pulse raced, not from fear, but from the sheer gall of it all. How far do people think they can push before someone pushes back? My name's Tom Harper, and at 52, I've seen my share of neighborhood nonsense. But this was next level. My garage, a practical haven of motor oil and sawdust, was no showroom. It was a working man's space, tools hung neatly on pegboards, paint cans stacked from recent neighborly favors, and storage bins labeled with my late wife's precise handwriting. Mike, the sheriff, wasn't your typical cop. He was the guy who'd organize toy drives with military precision, yet still find time to check on families hit hard by the storm. We were hashing out volunteer schedules when that SUV appeared, parked to maximize disruption. Margaret burst in, all pressed khakis and HOA-branded polo, radiating the kind of confidence that comes with a color-coded agenda. She didn't expect me, or Mike. Her eyes locked on his badge, and for 3 long seconds, she stood like a statue, her supply bag slipping down her arm. "Tom, good morning," she chirped, her voice dripping with fake cheer, as if finding me in my own garage was a delightful surprise. "I sent the notification letter last week. We're launching the Community Beautification Project here." "What letter?" I shot back. I'm meticulous about mail, especially HOA nonsense. Too many horror stories about surprise finds to let those envelopes slide. Margaret fumbled with her clipboard, pages fluttering like her crumbling excuse. "The Beautification Initiative," she said, "to inspire neighborhood upgrades. Your garage is the perfect example of how small changes make a big impact." Mike, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Private property requires explicit consent." His tone was calm but firm, the kind that cuts through nonsense without raising a voice. That's when Jack Miller, a contractor I vaguely knew from neighborhood projects, appeared, hauling staging equipment and HOA-labeled boxes. His face clouded with confusion. "Margaret, you said the homeowner was out today," he said, glancing at me, then the SUV, then back at her. "Miscommunication," Margaret stammered, her confidence cracking. I stood, slow and deliberate. "Let me get this straight. You parked a car in my garage without permission, planned a project without my say, and expected me to just vanish." Her jaw tightened, but she pulled out her phone, tapping frantically. "Just verifying the schedule," she said, her voice thinning as she scrolled. Then it got worse. Cards spilled from her clipboard, scattering across my concrete floor. Jack bent to pick them up, his expression shifting as he read. "These list 6 addresses with time slots," he said, voice low. "Are we hitting multiple houses today?" Margaret's face went pale. The cards detailed a military-precise schedule, 9:30 to 11:15, 11:45 to 1:10, for what she called a spontaneous community project. One card listed the address of Mrs. Larson, a widow 3 blocks over, with a note about overgrown landscaping requiring aesthetic guidance and cultural review. Cultural review? I held up the card, my stomach twisting. The phrase reeked of coded prejudice, targeting a grieving woman struggling to maintain her yard. Margaret's response was a rehearsed spiel about community standards and property values, but it rang hollow. Mike leaned over to inspect her supply bag, which she unzipped with visible reluctance. Inside were fake plants, ornamental storage bins, and, most chilling, photo templates. The before shots showed my garage exactly as it was, down to the paint cans and my bike hanging from the ceiling. The after shots? A staged, magazine-worthy version with no trace of my real life. "When were these taken?" I demanded. Margaret avoided my eyes. "Preliminary assessments last week," she mumbled, "standard for community enhancement." My blood boiled. They'd entered my home, photographed my space, without consent. This wasn't just trespassing, it felt like surveillance. Things escalated when neighbors started gathering outside. Word had spread about a demonstration project. Lisa Bennett, my next-door neighbor, approached, confused. Margaret said you volunteered for a garage makeover to boost property values, she said. I shook my head. I didn't volunteer for anything. The crowd, retirees, young families, even Mrs. Carter with her ancient retriever, split into two camps. Older residents nodding at Margaret's community pride, rhetoric, and newer folks eyeing her with skepticism. Mark Thompson, a tech guy in his 40s, raised his hand. This is voluntary, right? Homeowners can opt out without consequences. Margaret's quick, of course, didn't convince him. Then Sarah, a young mom balancing a toddler, cut to the core. Did Tom ask for this, or did the HOA decide for him? The crowd murmured, sensing the tension. Margaret dodged, spouting more jargon about neighborhood enhancement. I'd had enough. I found a car in my garage, uninvited, I said, addressing the crowd. They took photos without permission, created fake aftershots, even wrote testimonials in my name. Gasps rippled through the group. Margaret's narrative was unraveling. Then little Sophie, Sarah's 8-year-old, held up a pre-printed certificate dated today, proclaiming outstanding community participation. Why is it dated if the project isn't done? She asked. The silence was deafening. My phone buzzed with a text that turned my stomach. A building inspector was coming tomorrow for compliance verification due to reported safety violations in my garage. I hadn't made any changes. Someone, likely Margaret, had filed a false report to pressure me. I showed Mike, whose expression darkened. This is coordinated harassment, he said. Margaret's desperation peaked. This showcase is critical for neighborhood morale and property values, she insisted, clutching a locked case from the SUV. But the crowd was turning. Neighbors shared stories of Margaret's helpful visits, photos of their yards, questions about their homes, all under the guise of community planning. An elderly woman, Mrs. Ellis, revealed her grandson's security footage showing Margaret using emergency access codes to enter properties, including Mrs. Larson's, while owners were away. Jack, the contractor, finally broke. I've got recordings, he said, pulling out his phone. Instructions to assess properties, photograph deficiencies, even keys labeled for emergency access used for this. He played a clip of Margaret's voice, directing him to note cultural elements in a family's yard that didn't align with neighborhood character. The crowd erupted in outrage. Margaret's final gambit was a threat. This project is vital for my regional HOA board position, she snapped. Resist, and you'll face stricter code enforcement and lower property values. It was extortion, plain and simple. Mike's pen moved faster, documenting every word. Sophie tugged her mom's sleeve. Why is she saying she'll hurt people's houses if they don't let her lie? The child's clarity cut through the nonsense. The tide turned. Neighbors demanded an emergency HOA meeting. Mark confirmed that 5 homeowners could call one, and signatures poured in. By afternoon, Margaret's SUV was gone, her props packed under watchful eyes. That evening, the community center was packed. Mark presented a financial audit. $3,700 in unauthorized spending on staging, photography, and printing. Security footage confirmed trespassing across 8 properties. The board voted unanimously. Margaret was ousted, the improvement fund frozen, and new policies required explicit homeowner consent. Legally, Margaret paid $5,200, $3,700 for expenses, $1,500 for damages. Criminal charges were referred. The newsletter, meant to glorify her project, instead celebrated authentic community unity. Photos showed neighbors discussing real issues, not stage perfection. My garage remained functional, its paint cans and tools symbols of genuine neighborly help. 3 months later, the neighborhood thrived, not from forced aesthetics, but from real connection. Margaret moved away, her reputation in tatters. A new family bought her house, using their garage for actual storage, not show. Mike still swings by, sharing coffee and updates. My garage lights still flicker on, illuminating tools that fix real problems, not fake plans for fake stories. This wasn't just about my garage. It was about standing up to manipulation, demanding transparency, and choosing authenticity over control. What do you think? Have you faced bullying or injustice in your community? Share your stance in the comments. Let's talk about how we confront unfairness and protect what's ours.